Hey everybody, it's Amy here. I am the founder of Blue Veterinary Coaching.
And it's Kat. I am the glue practice specialist.
So good to see you again, Kat. Here we go. Another podcast episode. What is on our minds today, or on the minds of practice managers that we'd like to speak to today?
Ooh, okay, so this is a good one. What do we do when a team member apologizes for something, responds like they understand that they did something wrong, but the behavior doesn't change afterwards?
Yeah, or maybe it changes for like a week and then just
Mm,
goes right back to the old patterns, right? So,
totally.
one of my favorite quotes, I use this on my husband quite often, is that an apology without change is simply manipulation, right?
Ooh,
And when you
oh
really think
gosh.
about it, that's what it is. Even if it's not intentional, that is what it ends up being and how it shows up, in your practice, right?
Yeah, well, that's how it feels for sure.
Yeah,
You
we're not seeing the change. They were committed and we're just not seeing that positive change happen. So, what do you say, Kat, is the first step here in sort of acknowledging this question and acknowledging this very frequent scenario that pops up?
Yeah, I mean frequent for sure, and it's something that I have definitely experienced in the times in the hospitals that I've been in. And I think first and foremost, what we have to do to set this entire thing up for success is we have to create the expectation.
Yeah, so creating that expectation, like if we have this happening frequently, right? I think that's a first flag to be aware of, that somewhere along the line that expectation has gotten cloudy, or the boundaries or the definition of what that behavior is supposed to look like is getting really fuzzy along the edges. And so
Hmm.
beginning, right, recognizing that we've got a problem that we've got to fix, but in order to create stability so the problem doesn't keep popping up over and over and over, we have to really define what that expectation is. So, how do you recommend going about that?
Yeah, so I think that there are a lot of ways, and I will say that, the first thing that a manager always thinks about is the time that we have to do this. And so I think that being able to make it regular conversations is the most valuable way that you're going to be able to interweave this in your practice. If we can set the expectations verbally, if we can say that this is what we're going to expect, set in our expectation book, whatever that is, whether
Yeah.
that's a, you
Code
know,
of conduct or,
yeah, whatever that is that you call for your practice,
yeah.
manifesto, whatever. Have that so everybody can see it, and it's the same exact thing for everybody. And then don't just let it die on a piece of paper.
Right.
Actually talk about it,
Right.
actually bring it up in meetings, actually give examples, actually um, walk the walk.
Absolutely. And I think I'd like to add to that too. And this is just a theme for me and everything leadership related, is the more that we can make this collaborative, the easier it's going to be to manage to that and really lead
Mm.
people into this new level, right, of best behavior, best practice. So I always love when it's possible, you hopefully are having team meetings and you have a team meeting, and let's say the concern is communicating with like a condescending tone, right? So in that team meeting, throw it at the team. Let them define what those expectations should be.
Mm.
What is considered a positive, supportive tone? What is not? And so we define that together. And then that expectation is actually being created by the team instead of being
Mm-hmm.
created by you and then pushing it down on all of them. And now suddenly, instead of you being just I should say, air quotes, just a manager, that instead now we are really leading, because what you're going to do is advocate for what the team wants, advocate for the team's expectations for each other, which you're always going to get a lot more mileage out of it that way,
Yeah.
than having to just push down rules and regulations.
Oh, I love that. That sounds really great. But what happens when you have that one amazing, incredibly skilled technician
Always,
that
always. Yes, your best performer from a technical standpoint.
that also is not on board with this juju?
Yeah, is not really interested in making long-term change in their behavior. So the first thing that was always so important when we are giving feedback or coaching, to an employee that we're hoping to help them, support them through a behavior change, we need to focus on a couple of really clear things. The first one in my mind is the impact. What is the impact of the thing that they are doing, right? So let's just go along with this communication issue because it's a common one and it's kind of easy to speak to. So, what is the impact? And we need to focus not just on like the little impact. Oh, well, when you spoke to Brenda that way, it really put her on edge and she felt like you might be about to attack her for whatever reason. So that's kind of like the small version of the impact. But what's the bigger impact?
Mm,
Like
mhm,
culturally, what does this type of one sentence stated with a lot of, a lot of juice behind it? What does
mm,
this do in a bigger picture? And culturally, it's number one, it's dangerous to the culture because if everyone spoke like that to everyone, what
mhm,
would this place feel like? Right. And then also, it's a danger for that individual. So, that individual's goals, if they are in any way wanting to kind of continue to develop and improve, which is what we want from everyone, these types of behaviors stand in the way of their growth, stand in the way of their influence, the trust that they have among the team, and then their influence, their ability to lead in a moment, if that's something that they're interested in. And so,
mm,
in that sort of feedback coaching conversation, focusing on the impact, the little impact and the big impact, and then also really connecting it back to what's something that is important for that individual. How do they want to be seen? How do they want people to feel about working
mm,
with them? Right? Making it like, I'm all about the phrase like what's in it for me, and so really detailing what's in it for you. What happens if you don't change this and what happens if you do. So
mm,
it, and the whole purpose of it is making this a priority because when people slip back into the same patterns over again, they simply are not seeing it as an important enough thing to put
yeah,
long-term effort into. So we
yeah,
need to help them find that thing. And that's what leadership is, right?
mm,
Managing is saying to them, you need to change the way you're talking to people. Leadership is helping them find that motivation, that reason why this is important to their experience and their growth. Well, I just went
yeah.
on like a big long spiel there. What
You
do you
said
have to add?
so, well, you said so many good things there. I just want to break it down a little bit. First,
Yeah.
feedback, right? Like when
Hmm.
when something is not going the way that our entire team just sat down and decided, when we have that one outlier that needs to be a little different or difficult for one reason or another, that piece of feedback is so important, and the feedback now rather than later
Yes.
is
Yes,
even more important.
for
And
sure.
then you went into the value of the feedback and the integrity of the feedback. If we're just
Hmm.
saying, "Hey, you really hurt Brenda's feelings whenever you said that, and you're really rude,"
Yeah.
or you're kind of a B word, right? And they
Yeah.
were like, "Yeah, I know that.
Yeah,
I own it,
exactly. Wear it
right
as
on
a
my
badge of
chest,
honor.
baby." Valid owner. Hello, fully paid off, honey. No
I'm glad
regrets.
I'm coming across the way that I was hoping to.
Thanks for the compliment, right? 100%.
Yeah.
When we say things like that, we're just like letting it go, right?
Yeah.
Like we
Yeah.
can acknowledge it, but they've already acknowledged it. Most of these people understand the spikes that they wear,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
wear them with
Yeah.
passion,
Yeah.
right?
And
And
pleasure.
so,
Passion and pleasure.
God, we're weird. But that's why it is so important. Something else that you went into was like coaching to that individual. And I think this is a great place to kind of plug in the new workshop that you're working on, is all of the personalities that we hold in our practice, and the understanding and depths and differences and yummy nuances. I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But they're all different. And so if somebody came to me and somebody said, you're kind of rude, I'd be like, yeah, I know. But if
Yeah.
somebody came to me and they said, hey, I know that how the front desk flows is really important to how you get your work done. And when we go up there and we cause frenzies at the front desk, it really stops them. And so to get your work done the fastest, it's going to be to help them and support them. I'd be like, done. I want to get out of here on time.
Yeah. So
Right?
that
Like,
is such a perfect example. Like,
speak
don't
to
be
me.
complaining to me about getting out of work on time when the people around you aren't actively asking how they can help because
Right.
they don't want to work with you.
Right.
because of the way
Exactly.
you treat people,
Exactly.
right?
They're going to love it when you have to stay late and clean the blood off of the walls in exam room three.
A
They
hundred.
love that
Yeah,
actually.
and that blood could be from the animal or from the person that felt stabbed in the back when you said that thing with that tone, right? Yeah, and I do think that this is one thing that a lot of people miss. And what we're really talking about here is self-awareness and self-management, which is emotional intelligence skills. But I think a lot of people miss how they are sabotaging their own experience with those little moments where they are not communicating effectively or communicating in a way that other
Mm,
people can hear them, right?
yep.
But this brings us to, I think, sort of the third step of all this.
Well,
Oh,
actually,
go ahead.
before you go to the third step,
Yeah.
can I just add one more thing
Yeah.
about you talked about the danger of kind of like letting this ride and the danger of the kind of pitfalls here. I want to mention the danger to the leader as
Mhm.
well. So yes, it's a danger
Oh,
to the team, and we as leaders, where it's kind of part of what burns us out is constantly analyzing what the
yeah.
team needs, but also the danger to the leadership quality that we carry
Yeah.
by letting this go just one time. Like
Yeah.
if we choose to hear that, to hear or see or witness that behavior that we just talked
Yep.
about, and we let it go one time,
Yeah.
do you know what that does to
Yeah.
not only yourself and your self-confidence, because you see it and you choose to not, you
Yeah.
choose to hide under the rug, go into a different room, figure something else out, the danger that it takes to that person that's not receiving the feedback,
Yeah.
what that does to their psyche, and then to the rest of the team that's watching you
Yeah.
just walk into that room, say that this is the standard, set the tone, and then not do that thing just one time.
Well, and you know what? I think also that brings me to the thought of like the number one cause of culture slide. So,
Mm,
sliding from that place where things are good, but then into a place where enough times these things are allowed to continue because we don't want the drama. We don't want to deal with that person. We're convinced they can't change. They don't want to change, but we need
mm-hmm,
them here. So just deal with it, people. And now suddenly that behavior is normalized. And so
mm-hmm.
we can't be surprised when more people start communicating in that same way or whatever that behavior is, right?
Yep.
So, are you ready for me to move on to the next point?
Yes.
Okay. So, I think the next key point is that, okay, so we talk a lot about the difference between managing and leading, right? We can manage by saying to someone, this needs to stop. And here's the amount of time that you have to stop this. And if you don't stop this, there's this warning one, warning two, blah, 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 right? So that's managing. What we need to do and be able to do as leaders is be aware that people don't necessarily have the skill that is needed to make that long term change, right?
Mm,
We have to teach them what that looks like. How do we stop ourselves in a moment where things are extra stressful? How do we stop ourselves and check, what's about to come out of my mouth? Is it going to come out in a way that people want to jump in and help, or is it going to come out in a way that people are now scared to ask me questions and they don't want to work side by side with me, right? And so what we're
fine
talking,
line.
yeah, it's self-awareness, self-management. It's the same emotional intelligence skills. And just also keep in mind, if you don't feel like you are as a leader highly skilled in those areas, and maybe you're not sure how to speak to that, you can always outsource that training, right? So, and I'm not saying that
Mhm.
as a glue plug, but it is a glue plug, but I'm not saying it for that reason. I'm saying that I can imagine that there are some people in leadership that don't feel like they can explain what that process looks like. Probably the bulk of people in management can't explain what that change looks like. And so don't hesitate. Find that resource that's out there that is going to allow them to see what that process looks like, understand what we're doing in our brain to make this effective. Because if we don't teach them that, then it is silly for us to expect long term change. It's why things will just last for a week. People don't know how to do it long term. They put a mask on, or a mute button on their mouth, but you can't maintain that. That's not sustainable. And so
Yeah.
they go back into the old patterns.
Yep. Yeah, totally. The expectations that we have on our team, especially, and it happens with our customers too. Like so often we'll go in the room, we're like, oh, your dog has otitis externa and you should, clean both pinnas BID. You're like, what? Oh, I forgot. You don't speak in medical terms. Your
Yes,
dog
yes,
has an ear infection. You should clean their ears twice a day.
yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah,
they don't understand that, right?
yeah,
And we do that as leaders too. We expect our team, we're like, oh,
yeah,
we were so there 10 years ago. Like you can put it together. But
yeah,
that recognition that they're different people with different experiences and they've had different managers and different leaders in their life. Like we as the leaders have to constantly step back and reassess our team to see, well, what are their skills
mhm.
and where are we growing those skills right now,
Yeah,
and
where are the gaps? Where are the
where are
gaps?
the gaps
Yeah, and when we
exactly.
see a lot of communication kerfuffles,
Yeah,
right, then we know that there's a gap that we can absolutely pin on emotional intelligence. And there's a
yeah,
lot of other places that we could put it too, right?
yeah.
Different models or ways of looking at it. But I think the emotional intelligence perspective is very palatable. Like we can
Hmm.
teach it in a way that really resonates and people understand what's in it for them.
Hmm.
And so I think that's a great direction to lean in those
Yeah.
moments.
Well, I think that it gives people power back instead of, instead of pointing out what they're not, it says, oh, these are all the things that you are and that you can work on and build into.
Yeah,
It also, as a leader, something that was coming to me as you were talking about, we might not know it all. Actually, we never know. There's
never.
so many. I
Yeah,
mean, I've sat with dozens and dozens of owners at this point,
yeah,
and the amount of them that I'm like, hey, if we want to change this dynamic, you're going to have to lean into it. You have to
yeah,
stop leaning out. You have to lean in. Terrified, like
yeah.
absolutely terrified. They're like,
Yeah,
I'm a
overwhelmed.
business owner.
Yeah,
I can't do this. Like, I'm a veterinarian. I'm an introvert. I just wanted to work with
yeah,
animals and I have to manage all of these monsters. Like,
yeah,
what is
right,
this?
right, right,
And
right.
so the whole thing is like a leader doesn't mean that you know it all. It
Yeah,
very rarely means that you know it. To be a leader is to know that you don't know it all.
a hundred
To
percent.
be a leader is to lead imperfectly and always be willing to look for and ask for and implement the outside resources.
Yeah, I like
Truly,
that.
it takes
Lead
a village.
imperfectly and authentically. Like if
Mm,
you do those two things,
yeah,
um, your team feels that. Oh, look, we're going off on crazy tangents, right? But
we
it
are.
really, but it's right that
Yeah, it's true.
it's so okay to not know or to not be good at something, to be vulnerable and say, I'm not very good at this either. And it's something
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
need to work on and I'm working on. Here's how I am approaching that. Right. And then
Yeah.
that leads to that final step that I would say is
Hmm.
maybe like step four,
Yeah.
which would be having this plan in place with this individual. And quick little story. Just last week, and this is for real, I'm not saying it like comedians say, like, oh, I was at the airport last night. Like this really was just last week. I was working with a practice and we did a culture survey, and their culture is really solid. Like they are doing great things. The one thing that came up very consistently is what I will kind of paraphrase into issues lingering. So someone brings up a concern, the concern gets
Mm.
addressed by the manager, and then things are okay for a week or two, but then that same person that originally saw the concern and shared the concern sees that nothing has changed significantly in the long term. And then
Mm.
they feel like they've not been heard, right? They feel like, oh, it got shoved under the rug. I don't even know if they talked to the person, right? Because we don't share that. We don't,
Yep.
share those conversations. And that was the number one thing. And it came up very consistently. And this is a really healthy culture. So we were looking at fine tuning leadership is why we were doing this. But I think that leads us to that final step, step four, which is working the plan. This is not a one time conversation. If we're looking for someone to make long term change in how they show up, it does not happen in a one time sit down of having the conversation that we just sort of referenced. So a big part of that conversation needs to be a, how can I support you best through this? If I see that you're starting to go in this direction, or you come into my office and I can feel the tension, how can I share that with you in a way that feels really supportive, right?
Yeah.
I think of it as like tapping people on the shoulder and being like, just excuse me, I see something here, right? So how
Mm.
can we support that? And then most importantly, that there is scheduled check-ins. And so you have that initial conversation, and then we set a date, right? Then we say, okay, let's work on this for the next 2 weeks. 2 weeks would be the maximum, I would say. And then let's plan on checking back. I want to hear how you're doing along the way. If you need help, if you're struggling, please talk to me. Let me find
Hmm.
ways to help you. I am
Yep.
here to help you grow. That's my whole purpose, right? As a leader is to help you grow. And so in doing that, we now have created accountability. This is not going away. You can't just
Yep.
stick your mask on for a week and then everybody looks the other direction and then you just start going back to the old playbook again.
That's a
Like
big one.
we are looking for long term here. And so we're going to have that check in. And if they're still rocky and they're struggling a lot, then we're going to say, okay, let's check back again in another 2 weeks and let's see what different challenges pop up and where you see this becoming the biggest problem for you when
Yep.
you can't monitor your tone. And these do not have to be long conversations. I know what I'm talking about sounds like it's some massive ordeal and plan. It's not. It can be a 2 minute check in conversation
Hmm.
and say, when did you struggle? When did you succeed? When were you proud of yourself? And it can be so simple.
Yeah, so working the plan, baby steps,
Hmm.
right? And I think that specifically for leaders and for the people that they're leading, baby steps in all of this, because when you realize a gap for yourself as a leader, and then you're like, oh, I'm going to go all in, I'm going to read 4 books, and I'm going to listen to
Yeah.
these podcasts, and I'm going to go hard on the team, and they're going to learn everything that I'm
Yeah.
learning, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Then you get burned out, and then that's where that cycle starts of like, oh, we did something really cool, and it was a really great idea, and
Yep.
boom, it fell down,
It all
right?
fell apart. Yep.
So baby steps. Number two, having helpers. So anytime that you give that feedback, there's going to be one or two people usually
Hmm.
that are still those people, safe people.
Yeah.
And a lot of times these people are the ones that are kind of like in their little gossip triangle or
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
like being influenced negatively. And
Yeah.
so if we can bring those people in, so like in your first feedback conversation, maybe you say, hey, I'm not here every day and I want to make sure that this feels really safe and consistent for you. Can you identify 2 other people that we can share this information with?
Hmm.
That we can all be on a team together
Working on this collectively.
working on this collectively, and then also it brings in other allies and it brings in this kind of like multi-tiered situation
Yeah.
where maybe you're the leader that's kind of heading this all up, but you're also coaching multiple people now on how to
Right.
hold people and support people and hold people accountable and all
Yeah.
the things. It's so good.
I love
And
that.
then the last piece that I was going to say, it's losing me now. Let me come back, let me think about it for a second.
Okay. Well, maybe if I say the next thing, then it'll come back to you. So I think that this takes us all the way back now to the beginning of the very first step that we spoke to, which is creating that expectation, right? So when we're talking about moving forward, we're moving forward not just with this individual, but if that expectation has been unclear, then being able to speak to it as a group, collaborate on it, have them define what that expectation should look like, and moving forward, we are now on top of it. When
Hmm.
if things are reported to us that are not aligned with that expectation, or we observe them personally, we are
Hmm.
on top of it and we follow this step by step, thing that we just went through.
Yeah. Yep. Totally. Yeah. And I remembered what I was going to
Yeah.
say. And
Well,
it was about the follow up piece that you were talking about. Oh my gosh, you're so right. There are so many times where this goes really well, right?
yeah.
We're like, okay, we've got the courage. We're going to have the feedback conversation.
Yeah.
And we take the scary technician into the room and we're like, okay. And sometimes we have our assistant manager with us. And so we feel really safe. And
Yeah.
we talked about it. And we're like, we know all the things that we're going to say to make this so nice and so kosher and so
Yeah. Yeah.
warm
Yeah.
and gooey, and we're
Feel
going to get
good.
her on our side.
Hmm. Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
this is what happens
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
time.
Totally.
And so we have this really strong conversation, but that person on the other side that you're giving feedback to they smell right through all of your vulnerability and all of your non-authenticity
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
putting all of these shields on and bringing in the assistant manager and having this,
Yeah.
formal document in front of you
Yeah.
with this smart goal and all of these things, it feels so weird. It
Yeah.
feels so weird. And then they say, okay, we're going to meet back, once every 2 weeks or every Monday, and we're going to do this. And it feels like you've got to go into like prison every
Yeah.
Monday and
Yeah.
sit in that cold exam room with these 2 people that are looking at you, being like, have you done enough?
Yes.
Oh, we have to change that. We have to change how that
Yeah.
feels.
Yeah.
And by what you're talking about, these like 2 minute, really authentic conversations,
Yeah.
that is how we casualize this into a place that actually feels safe. Like
Yeah.
you bringing somebody into an exam room with your bestie and being like, hey, we see what's going on. We really think that you're a brat, but could you do more of this and less of this? That's not going to work.
Yes.
somebody does that to me, I'm seeing right through that BS.
Because it's not authentic. It's
It's
not
not
authentic.
authentic.
It's got to feel real. And that's why, I can speak for Kat on this as well, that we are huge proponents of being willing to be genuine and authentic and vulnerable as leaders, because that's how people will connect to you. And if you
Yeah.
want people to change, if you want people to put in the effort to grow into a better version of themselves, they have to feel connected to you. If they
Hmm.
don't, why would they? Why would they make
Right.
that effort? Right?
Totally.
Especially if they've been getting along away with it for a really long time. So
Hmm.
that last point, Kat, I think is so important, that we need to show up in a way that people can feel that we want them to win. Like, we are here to support you through this, not
Hmm.
punitive. Instead, we have an opportunity here. Yeah, we got to change something, but the positives of that, you're going to feel really quickly as a member of
Yeah.
this team, right?
Yeah.
And be able to
Totally.
kind of share that moment with them.
Yeah.
Anything else? You good?
No. I think we
I
can
think
drop
it's
the
funny
mic.
how we get to the end and then all of a sudden I'm just like, okay, that's it. Like, I think we said it. Bye. As
You know, there was a nugget or two, I'm sure, right?
long as
Hopefully,
there's a
between
nugget
the
or two,
banter.
then we're good. Something in there that you can take. All right, guys, we will see you next time.
Bye.